So what we are reading in the last class was Friday, 9th March 1883. We had read that portion last time. Those who have books, have you located it? 9th March 1883. And Sri Ramakrishna had said that God alone is real, all else is unreal. But the problem is we are deluded by our worldliness, and he has given some examples. So one example is the camel who keeps on eating thorny shrubs. Its mouth bleeds, but goes back to eat that again. And another example is of the lady, of the woman who gave birth to a child and suffered terribly in the childbirth, but she forgets that pain. And the third example he gives is people who have the pineapple fruit in front of them, but they eat the prickly leaves around the fruit, and they forego the fruit. I don't know who that is, but he's referring to somebody. There are people who eat the prickly leaves of the pineapple and not the fruit. So these are three examples. And thus they suffer. It might be that the world is unreal and God is real, but then what is the problem? One problem might be that we are not getting the reality, but the real problem is that we are suffering. If we are stuck with the unreal, if we are stuck with the impermanent, that which has no true essence, the world, we suffer. And then we don't know why we suffer. We look for fulfillment in this world through relationships, money, through achievement, popularity, health, beauty, and none of them seem to give us any lasting satisfaction at all. Either in our pursuit of these things we are frustrated and we are unhappy, or we get some of it. What we want in life, we get plenty of it, and we are still unhappy because we are not satisfied. We are not satiated. Vivekananda says in a talk, he said, since you are Brahman, you are one with the Lord of this universe, so whatever you want will be fulfilled. Whatever desires you have in your mind, you will get it. It just may be that your karma stands in the way temporarily, but one day or the other, it will not happen immediately. But in the course of this life, and maybe lives in the future, you will get what you want. And therefore the great conclusion is, do not want, for you will get what you want. And you'll be sorely troubled by it when you get it. Because we do not know what to ask for. We ask for things which trap us, which cause more suffering for us. Then the next question the devotee asks is, but why has God put us in this world at all? You are saying we are deluded by the power of Maya, but that's the power of God. So why would God delude us? And he says, no, it's not that God is deluding us. This world is a field of action. And he says, the Guru instructs the disciple, do this, do not do that. A wise way of living in this world. All religion, all morality starts with do's and don'ts. So guides us to a wiser, more spiritual way of living. And then he gives 3 levels of action. He says, Guru instructs the disciple to perform certain works and refrain from others. There's refrain from evil, deliberately do not do evil, and do what is good. Again, he advises the pupil to perform action without desiring the result. So that's one step higher. So you go 3 steps. One is instinctive action. I do what I want, as far as society will permit me. As long as the cops don't get me, the IRS doesn't catch me, I will do whatever I like. Because I want to. What's wrong with that? But very soon that leads to unhappiness. That leads to lack of fulfillment. So evil doesn't work. Why would that be evil? What I want to do and I'll do it. Why would that be evil? Because when I do what I want to do, what is that wanting? Where does it come from? It basically comes from our desires, from our deep likes, attachments, cravings, and from our dislikes. So equally, from temptation, from fear, from craving, and from hatred, one continuously oversteps the bounds of morality, decency, even law. Nobody does bad things, evil things out of, detached goodness of heart. It's always, I know it's wrong, but for some reason, either through temptation or through fear, I could not help it. I told a lie, or I did something wrong. So all immorality comes from this, our strong attachments, likes, and strong hatreds and dislikes in this world, which we cannot control. So the first teaching is to rise above that. Everybody, and how do we rise above it? Everybody, we like to think of ourselves as good people. If we do not think of ourselves as good people, we feel bad. There is an inner conscience, the conscience within us, which, still small voice. It's an amazing thing, really. A moral compass which all of us have. All systems of ethics, philosophy of ethics and all, they are developments based on that we have a sense of morality. All of us, even the worst of us, we would like to be good. For certain reasons we are not able to be, but we would like to be good. So that is the basis for morality. And so use that to rise from immoral life or evil action or bad action to good action, to a moral life. That's the first level. You go from the immoral to the moral. And then beyond that, a moral thing can also be selfish. That, I'm not doing anything wrong, but it's all for myself or for my own family. And lots of people are there. It's basically the backbone of society is basically decent people, but worldly people, pursuing worldly goals, no particular high ethical, goal or spiritual goal. And society functions with people like that, and it's good. But higher than that, if you want to be spiritual, you go beyond moral action to selflessness. So that's moral, plus also not connected with this little personality. So he says that you go from there to that. The impurity of the mind is destroyed to the performance of duties. It's like getting rid of a disease by means of medicine under the instruction of a competent physician. So, what was the question? Why are we in this world? Why are we under the spell of Maya? If that's the power of God, why have we been deluded? And his answer is, it's not delusion. God is not deliberately hurting us. It's our spiritual progress that is being ensured in this world. Either we listen to the small voice of conscience, either we listen to the teachings of ethics and religion and spirituality and change and develop, or the kicks and blows from the world outside. Our own suffering will teach us. Somebody was asking today itself that for a tamasic person, how will that person progress? See, a sattvic person is already elevated, pure mind, alert, sensitive. That person is very aware of one's own shortcomings and would like to change and become better, always striving to be better. The rajasic person, who is dynamic, full of ambition and desire and restlessness, that person learns through quickly. The world provides feedback. If I'm a particularly nasty person, I'll go only so far, no further. And I will accumulate so much unhappiness and suffering in a short time, I will clearly see this is not working. A rajasic person gets a lot of pain in life. But a tamasic person is how does that person change? Tamasic person is the one who doesn't do much. Dull, inert, just passing days, not up too much, nothing good, nothing bad also, nothing energetic, no big thing in this world, no higher goal. That person, how does that person change? Over time, it will show that this is not working. Even that life, it's passing by. Time is passing by. Old age is coming, death is coming, and an accumulated hopelessness, frustration, and it comes up in life. So one wants to do better. Somebody put it this way. There is a word in Sanskrit, antaryami, inner controller. One of the names of God is the inner controller. And that is expressed in that voice of conscience within us. So suppose someone does not listen to that inner controller. One may not listen. Often we do not. Then what happens? I asked a teacher once, there's no word called bahiryami. Yami means a controller. There's no word called external controller, but why not? Well, the answer was very interesting. There is an external controller. That is the law of karma. Do not learn from instruction, teaching, inspiration, the lives of others, the teachings of others. Do not learn from morality, ethics. Do not listen to one's own conscience. Then kicks and blows. That's the only way we will learn. That's a long, painful process. Anyway, in this way, we move from an unethical life to an ethical life, a decent life, from that to a spiritual life, through karma yoga, bhakti, jnana, all these paths of spiritual progress. And that's what the world is doing for us. It's not that this world is for worldliness and there is some kind of spiritual life. This world is preparing us for spiritual life. So that's his answer, actually. Then he asks, why doesn't God free us from the world? This will be the next question. Oh, so the whole world and everything is for freedom from this world itself, for liberation, enlightenment, all of that. If that's the point, that's your point, well, then God could free us, God could free us. Why put us through all this? So what is his answer? He will free us when the disease is cured. He will liberate us from the world when we are through with the enjoyment of lust and gold. Once a man registers his name in the hospital, he cannot run away. The doctor will not let him go away until his illness is completely cured. It's a very nice answer. Why won't the Lord let us free? Because the sad truth is we don't want freedom. We don't really want it. If at this moment we were given freedom, we wouldn't want it really. We may say that, I want it. I want freedom, whatever that is. I have a vague idea, but clearly it is something great, wonderful, so I want it. I want God vision and all of that I want. We are studying in the Bhagavad Gita, 11th chapter. Krishna will give the vision of God to Arjuna, his beloved disciple. And the result will be Arjuna is terrified. He says, stop, I don't want this. We are not ready. Even if it is given to us, we are not ready for it. We still want this. Something, we still have a hope of this kind of life being fulfilling. Somehow this will fulfill its promise to us. Remember, it's not negativity. It's not world denying. Because the enlightened ones, the liberated ones, live in this very world. Live in this very body. But they are extraordinary people. Krishna, Rama, Ramakrishna, Jesus, all of them. And they are the most extraordinary people that civilization has ever seen. In centuries, one such comes as a most powerful demonstration. And then next to them are the saints of every religion, every spirit. So these are so extraordinary. That means there is a wonderful way of living in this world. In the world, but not of it. So, yes. Once we are ready, we will be released from the hospital. So the hospital example is very nice. We have a disease. We say, why doesn't the doctor let me off? Because the point of the hospital and the doctor is there to treat us and cure us. And until the doctor still suspects that there is some chance of disease left, the doctor will not let you off. I'll come to you, but let me just share this funny story. I just remembered, years ago, we have a hospital in Calcutta. We means our order, the monastery. We run hospitals in different cities in India. So one big one in Calcutta. And there's this ward where monks, if they are ill, you are admitted to the hospital and you go to that particular ward. It's called Premananda ward. I was sick once as a novice, not yet a full-blown monk, but a novice. And I was admitted. I had a fever, I forget what, fever or something. And then the oldest living monk in our order at that time, who was 101 or 102 at that time, around 100 at least, he one day turned up. And a very tough old man. He turned up and he went straight into the ward and lay down in a bed. He's completely oblivious of the formalities that, you have to report and then the doctor will recommend and you're admitted and there's paperwork to be done. You can't just go into the hospital and lie down on the bed. And there's no question of insurance there. We have monastic insurance, which means, it's not a thing. It just means you go. Yeah. So he lay down and the doctors came rushing and the monks in charge of the hospital came rushing. And of course, he's the senior most monk. What happened? Why are you here? And he said, oh, I felt feverish. He felt feverish and he walked a distance of a few kilometers from the ashram where he was to the hospital and got himself admitted. And you could see the doctors and the other monks rolling their eyes. And the funniest thing happened when a few days later, he got up and started walking out. And the brothers and nurses, they all ran after him. You can't do that. Swami, where are you going? He said, I feel okay. I'm going now. I'm all right. You can't do that. You have to be discharged. The doctors have to be told and the paperwork has to be done. You can't just walk away. So right, like that. You can't walk away from God's hospital. All right, yes.
So you said that God doesn't free us because we don't want that freedom. We don't want that freedom because we don't know what it is to want. And that's because of the ignorance we have.
Yes.
So how do we get disgusted with all the worldly aspects of living and want that freedom?
More than disgust, we see that something much better than this is here, is available to us.
But we don't know.
Now we know. That's why we are here. That's why the avatar has come, the saints teach, the scriptures are there, religion. All of that is the mechanism for letting us know that this is possible. And then you see the lives of the saints that, oh, so you can be happy without any money. You can be happy even if physically you have a disease. You can be happy if you're all alone in the world. You're still happy. Where is that joy coming from? A pure life without any pursuit of worldly goals, and yet they're such amazing people. When you see that, and then all of spirituality, these texts, these philosophies, they tell us such a thing is possible. We know it, but even that's not enough. It's not that ignorance is really the problem. That ignorance translates into desire for this world. We look to this world for fulfillment. That doesn't go away so easily. Even after we know all this, we still keep slipping back. That story of the two birds on the tree is very nice. That little bird which was pecking this fruit and that fruit, eating sweet and bitter fruits, and once it pecked on a very bitter fruit. It got a shock and it stopped, and he looked up and saw this shining upper bird. The bird was sitting way up in the tree. This is from the Mundaka Upanishad. So with shining plumage sitting way up on the tree, not eating. The description is not eating fruits, but witnessing, luminous. And this lower bird thought, that's wonderful. I wish I could be like that. I want to be like that. And it hopped upwards towards the upper bird, the higher bird. But then it saw a particularly luscious fruit somewhere. And then it stopped and it went there. Let me just taste this and then I'll get back on the track. And then it was so tasty, it totally forgot about going up to the higher bird. And it started tasting fruits again until it comes to another bitter fruit and shocked. What am I doing? I stopped my spiritual pursuit. I must go on. And he goes on. And this can go on for lifetimes until it comes to near the vicinity of the higher bird. And then it's enveloped in the radiance of that higher bird. And then the amazing story, end of the story is that the lower bird disappears. There is no lower bird. There was only this higher bird. So that's what's happening. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
There was this monk in our main monastery in Belur, Swami Brahmananda, just like Sri Ramakrishna, would say that people don't want it. And this monk went to Swami Brahmananda, who was the president of the order, and said, I want it. If you can give it to me, I want enlightenment. I want God realization. Swami Brahmananda said, all right, come tomorrow, early in the morning. And he didn't come. And for the next few days, he carefully avoided Swami Brahmananda. And Swami Brahmananda sadly said, I knew it. A friend of mine, another monk, he told me this story, that one day, Swami Ranganathananda, the 13th president of our order, at that time he was vice president, staying in Hyderabad. And he was visiting our main monastery in Belur. So there's that room where he used to stay. I have seen him there also. So when he would visit, all the monks and the youngsters like us, we would all go and we would offer pranams to him and come back. So this friend of mine, she told me that day we had all gone, all the monks, and I was at the end of the line. So when I went into the room, Swami Ranganathanji was lying down. That is a particular pose many people associate with him. Lying on his side on the bed, and he would sometimes talk. It's almost exactly the pose which Ranganatha Swami in the temple, yes, the Vishnu's image is like that. Anyway, so he was lying down like that, and this monk entered and bowed down to him, and then started speaking about spiritual practice. And Swami Ranganathanji talked to him about the Atman, that you are not the body, not the mind, you are this pure consciousness. And my friend said to him, "But Swami, I don't understand. It doesn't seem real to me. I mean, I know all these things, but I really haven't gotten it." Ranganathanji at that moment looked up at him into his eyes and directly said, "Be that as it may, what I am, that you are." And something happened at that time. When we saw the Swami looking at him straight and saying these words, my friend said, "A great terror seized me and my knees started trembling." And he says, "I just ran away from the room. I rushed down the stairs and ran away from there." He said, "I didn't know what I was doing. How could you behave like this with a vice president of the order and a senior Swami?" He says, "I was just scared." Why? This terror comes from something much deeper within us, that which makes us a jiva, a sentient being, separate from the divinity, our real nature. That becomes deeply threatened. Right? So there is a fear that comes. We are happy to continue in this way. We are happy to continue being spiritual seekers, but not finders. But at one time we must find. About this still small voice of the conscience within, the great philosopher Immanuel Kant said, is one quote which has become very famous. He said, "Two things fill me with wonder: the starry heavens above and the conscience within the hearts of human beings. These two things fill me with wonder." And that means the cosmos and our own consciousness, our the inner, this being which we are. This is also amazing. And then he goes on. Two interesting things. Man entered the room and said, "High tide is coming in the Ganges." The master and the devotees ran to the Panchavati to see it at the sight of a boat being tossed by the tide. Sri Ramakrishna exclaimed, "Look, look, I hope nothing happens to it." We have read all this, I'm rushing through it. They all sat in the Panchavati, the grove, the trees there. The master asked M is the author, and he was a school teacher. So master asked M to explain the cause of the tide. M drew on the ground the figures of the sun, moon and earth and tried to explain gravitation, ebb tide, flood tide, new moon, full moon, eclipse and so forth. Master to M, "Stop it! I can't follow you. It makes me dizzy. My head is aching." Well, how can they know of things so far off? You see, during my childhood, I could paint well, but arithmetic would make my head spin. I couldn't learn simple arithmetic. Then he goes back to the room, returned to the room with the devotees. Looking at a picture of Yashoda on the wall, he said, "It is not well done. She looks like a garland seller." Just a couple of points about this. The tide coming in, I have seen this too. In the main monastery in Belur, where Sri Ramakrishna was, is a Kali temple, which is on the other side of the river Ganga. And the monastery where we were trained, our main monastery, is on one side. So you can see this tide coming in because it's so close to the delta where the river Ganga, it flows into the Bay of Bengal. So the river there is affected by high tide and low tide because of the effect of the moon, high tide, low tide. So what happens there in the river is suddenly you'll see the river flowing the opposite direction. So river usually it flows from the north to the south down to the Bay of Bengal to the sea. But suddenly you will see the water which is flowing like this from north to south suddenly starts flowing from south to north. Basically because of high tide, water rushes into the and leads to funny situations sometimes. I remember once a monk who visited our monastery after many, many decades. He was a trainee a long time ago, then he was in many different ashrams, and he was coming back to the monastery after decades. So he was sitting by the riverside, and I was sitting next to him, and he said, "Oh, that's so strange. In our days, the river used to flow this way. Now it's flowing this way." I said, It does this more than once every day, not in our days. It's the high tide and the low tide. But when the high tide comes in, it's interesting. I have seen it myself. It comes in, you will see like a big wave, a wall of water rushing in from the south, from the direction of the sea. And it sweeps across. And sometimes it can be quite violent. It can break embankments on the banks of the river. It can toss. So what happens is, they know that it's exact times when this tide will come in. So in Bengali they call it Ban asche. So what they do is, immediately you can see all the boats. It's very interesting. They don't keep it tied on the banks of the river. They actually immediately set sail, and they come to the middle of the river. They come to the middle of the river. That's where the turbulence is the least. If you are on the sides of the river, there's a likelihood that the boat will be smashed against the river banks and so on. So that's one thing. And you have to catch it right now. It's coming, so you have to run and see it. And that's like Sri Ramakrishna and everybody in the room, they ran to see it. It's fun to see that. A story is about Swami Bhuteshanandaji, the 12th president of our order. So he was always very slow. It's exactly like Mark Twain. Mark Twain was once told, hurry up. And Mark Twain said, I have only 2 speeds, this and slower. So that was Swami Bhuteshanandaji. He would be very slow and deliberate, and even he would speak in a slow drawl. Those who have seen him, they know. So they came to his room. His room was near the embankment. He was the president of the order on the bank of the river. The tide is coming, come see the monks. So it's entertainment for the monks. So the monks all rushed towards the river, and they saw the tide come and go away, and then they came back. While they are coming back, they saw Swami Bhuteshanandaji going towards the river. And they said, Swami, you're so late. It's gone now. What will you see? He said, oh, well, since I have started, let me finish. The second thing which I wanted to mention here was, so they show the tide, how the tide works, the pull of the moon, the gravitational pull of the moon on the ocean. And then Sri Ramakrishna says, stop it, I can't understand it, my head is reeling. And then he says something very interesting. He says that when I was a schoolboy, I could paint very well, but I couldn't learn arithmetic. It would make my head spin. There was, that reminded me, Gardner, those who have studied child psychology and education, Howard Gardner, his famous multiple intelligences, 7 intelligences. Before the class, I looked it up today. Now they're speaking about 8. But anyway, when we learned it, it was 7 intelligences. So his thesis was that our culture values only one kind of intelligence. It considers that to be intelligent. And that which is, you get good grades in school, in college for that, and go to Ivy League. But that's only one kind of intelligence. There are multiple kinds of intelligence. And it's only after Gardner that it was recognized. Otherwise, it would be like, this kid is intelligent, other kids are dumb. No, they might have other kinds of intelligence. So Gardner spoke about the 2 kinds of intelligence which are valued in our culture all throughout, especially modern culture, is what he called verbal linguistic intelligence. You're good with words. You can speak, write well and all of that. You read well. Some kids are really good at that. The second one is logico-mathematical. So you're very good with analytical skills. You're really good at engineering and all of that, and maths. So these 2 are really praised. You're good at science or in the humanities. But then there's another skill, the what is called spatial skill. Artists, architects. See, Sri Ramakrishna says, I could paint very well. Architects, artists, they have that spatial skill. Then there is something called a kinesthetic skill. So dance, sports, some have extraordinary coordination. Physical, it's a physical intelligence, but it's a kind of intelligence, which is, why some make it to the Juilliard and others can't. So this is they have that rhythm, kinesthetic intelligence. Then there is something called musical intelligence, music and rhythm, rhythmical intelligence. Then there is interpersonal intelligence. Some people are really good with people. And actually, these are the ones who are likely to succeed, in management, in politics, and so on. Good with people. That's an extremely important kind of intelligence. And leaders generally have it. Intrapersonal intelligence means you're quite aware and understand yourself. Not in the Vedantic sense of I am the Atman or Brahman, but in the sense of understanding one's own feelings, activities, strengths and weaknesses, character. So, intrapersonal. So, that's the 7. And now that I saw they have introduced another one, natural intelligence, which talks about understanding nature and living things. Some people are really good with plants, pets, with the environment and things like that. Anyway, now notice, Sri Ramakrishna, he says, I can't understand math. It would make my head spin. But he was not only good at painting, he was good at, as a little kid, he would make beautiful sculptures, clay models of gods and goddesses and worship it. He had a tremendous memory. He would just learn entire plays by heart, just listening to the plays, even without the book. He could draw very well. He could, of course, sing extraordinarily well all his life. He could sing and dance very well. Almost every other area of intelligence, and of course words. He was this master at teaching, using words, wordplay. Only this strange weakness in math. And notice, this dialogue is constructed so well. The author M, he doesn't fail to notice that after saying that my head spins, I could paint very well. On the way back, he enters the house and sees the painting of Yashoda and says, this is not well done. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Yes, there's a microphone here. Yeah.
I just have a question about the arithmetic. Does this correspond with, I think it's in the Kathamrita where he says, I haven't come here to subtract.
That's right.
I've only come to add.
That was wordplay here, that he has come to unite and not to subtract. He affirms the truth of all spiritual paths. He brings people together, and so he come to unite in that sense. But it's also true. Not only that, there are some other things he couldn't do. He couldn't, what was that? Put the buttons on a shirt or something like that is there. I've forgotten. There's some things he found it very difficult. It was kind of psychological dislike for that kind of thing. Yeah. So Adhar is this very accomplished young man and a deputy magistrate in those days. He has come and he asks Sri Ramakrishna. This is his first visit. This is at the bottom of the page 185. What about animal sacrifice? Because Kali is a deity to which animals were sacrificed, goats were sacrificed. Is that right? Isn't it killing? Isn't it bad? How can it be part of religion? Sri Ramakrishna doesn't agree agree entirely. He says that no, there are rituals. So on a special puja occasion, a special ritual, a goat may be sacrificed. There's nothing wrong in it. However, he says, I can't see animals being killed. So and he gives humorously, he says, because animals are sacrificed, goats are sacrificed before the Divine Mother, and the meat is considered prasada, offered food. Now, you cannot refuse offered food. And so Sri Ramakrishna, he says, what I do is, I touch one finger to that dish when it's offered to me, and I put a dot on my head, so that the mother is not annoyed with me, that I'm not. But he says, I can't bear it if animals are killed. Then he says, he goes further, I see God in all beings. And then he says, the result of it, which is that even if a certain being dies, I am consoled by knowing that the divinity within it, he says, the soul is beyond life and death. It is the death of the body. I can clearly see that. And then, notice, it is something he's telling Adhar. One should not reason too much. And he says, it's enough if one loves the lotus feet of the mother. If you get devotion to God, that's enough. If your reasoning takes you there, that's good. Don't keep on digging into it again. Then you'll again get confused. And he gives a very nice example. You get clear water if you drink from the surface of a pool. Put your hand deeper and stir the water and it becomes muddy. Yeah, the intellect is a tool. It's an instrument which helps us to get at a certain conclusion. But if you just go on, on the basis of argument, you can't argue your way to God. That's the thing. And that's why the importance of scripture, the Vedas or the Upanishads. Here are the experiences of enlightened beings that they have set it down for you, which you will never get to by thinking freely. So what the Upanishads say, my reasoning can take me there. Does reasoning have no role at all to play? No, reasoning has a role to play. First of all, the reasoning itself, logical thinking, will enable you to discover the meaning of the Upanishads, meaning of the texts. Not only that, it will also help to make it rational. Vivekananda said, man must not only have faith, but also have intellectual faith too. Your intellect, to the extent that you can think, it should say this is correct. This is logical, rational. But that's it. And then he gives two kinds of devotion. Dhruva's devotion, there was desire, and then Prahlada's, there was no desire, motiveless. So if you have desire, he connects it back to what he was saying about this world. If you have desire and you have devotion to God and you ask for what you want, you will get what you want. If you have no desire, that means no worldly desire. You have a desire for God, you want God, then you will get God. And there were these people, very funny things, in the gospel itself you find. There was Hajra, a skeptic, who was spiritual, but also skeptical, and also very materialistic. And he would hang around Sri Ramakrishna, consider himself to be very spiritual, and he'd look at Sri Ramakrishna giving advice to others. He would also give advice. He would be very pompous. And he would sit outside, and he would tell these young men who came around Sri Ramakrishna, he said, don't let him fool you. When he would say that, they would say, Sri Ramakrishna said, only love God and God realization is the goal, give up worldly desires. And he said, don't let him fool you. Ask him for both. Why can't he give you both? You can become enlightened and you can become rich and powerful and famous in the world. And Sri Ramakrishna scolded him strongly, and he said, don't listen to him. He has a very petty mind. He can't let go of it's like, I want the pineapple and also the prickly leaves around the pineapple. Swami Ashokanji said, it's like saying, yes, there is nectar and there is poison. So when his people say, you have both, I have a balanced life, it's like having a sip of nectar and a sip of poison. Why? Then a direct question. How can one realize God? Through that kind of love, that motiveless love, desireless love. Desireless means no desire for the world. I have seen it, this is it, I have had enough of it, good. It will go on in its own way. I don't want you to rearrange things in the world in my favor. But what I do want something. I want you. I want you, my Lord. I want deep devotion for you. I want this, my mind to be stilled in meditation, in prayer. I want to have a heart which is, selfless, which converts every one of my actions as a service, as a worship of you, my Lord. And finally, I want that knowledge of reality, of what you are and what I am, that identity, that aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman. These are the things we want, and it is encouraged in spiritual life. This is what we should want. People think that, so you're completely desireless, you don't want anything. That seems rather strange. Why would one engage in such a great undertaking without any particular motive? There is a clear motive. Moksha, liberation, nirvana, enlightenment, salvation, going beyond suffering, attaining fulfillment. The same thing that motivated Vivekananda, the same thing that motivated Buddha. So there is a motivation. How can one realize God? Through that kind of love. But one must force one's demand on God. One should be able to say, "Oh God, wilt thou not reveal thyself to me? I will cut my throat with a knife." That is the tamas of bhakti. Devotee. So the crucial question here, can one see God? Master, yes, surely. One can see both aspects of God, God with form and without form. That means the Advaitic realization that I am Brahman. That is possible. Or the dualistic devotional approach, where I love God in this form, as my Father in heaven, or as Vishnu, or the Divine Mother, Kali. I love God in this form, and I want to experience God in this way. Can you actually see that? Yes, you can. You can actually experience most powerful experience, life-transforming experience one can have. Vision of God. And then a third one he introduces, Sri Ramakrishna. Again, God can be directly perceived in a man with a tangible form. Seeing an incarnation of God is the same as seeing God himself. God is born on earth as man in every age, sort of indicating that he is an incarnation. So seeing an incarnation is seeing God. One needs faith, of course, that I am actually seeing an incarnation. In the Gita, Sri Krishna warns Arjuna that those who think I'm a mere human being, they will not attain, they will not get the results of this. This is Krishna, he's my friend, that's it. No, Krishna is an incarnation of God. So that faith, and that faith is also given by the grace of God. It doesn't come easily. So in 3 ways, he has given 3 ways. One is the Advaitic realization of Satchidananda existence, consciousness, bliss, and you will realize that you are that. That is liberation, that is God realization, that is God vision, that is experience. Or the devotional way of experiencing God as Vishnu, Father in heaven, the Divine Mother, and experiencing, actually having a vision, feeling the presence of God, very real, not theoretical. Or seeing an incarnation and believing and having faith that this is an incarnation of God. Yes. Then March 11, 1883. It was Sri Ramakrishna's birthday. You had a question? Yeah, so there's 2 questions there and one in the front.
Swamiji Pranam, you mentioned the faith in acknowledging an incarnation when one sees one. Is not doing that a bigger error than not somebody who's not an incarnation, but you have faith that they are? So, for example, even currently, if we scour enough, we will find that various communities believe 4 or 5 or maybe more people as incarnations.
Yeah.
Is there an error in perceiving somebody as an incarnation when they're not?
So this is like the water becoming muddy if you put your hand too deep in it. Yeah, so it's a difficult thing to say, but incarnations are few and rare. We believe in our order and in the Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement, we believe Sri Ramakrishna to be an incarnation of God. However, Vivekananda has left it quite open. He says you may take him as an incarnation of God. You may take him as a great saint. You may take him as a Jivan Mukta perfected master. The main thing is to follow and do what he has told us to do. So he's kept it quite open. But in our tradition, we believe him to be an incarnation of God. So you can go to 2 different extremes. One extreme is, say, the Christians believe that there was only one incarnation of God. That is Jesus Christ, and no more. Not before that, nor after that. There's only one begotten Son of God. That we don't agree. We agree there have been multiple incarnations. But because of this openness in Hinduism, there is a surfeit of incarnations. That also doesn't seem to be quite right. Too many incarnations all the time. As Swami Ashokanji said, in the 1960s in Berkeley, the beginning of the hippie movement, he said, "Oh, Berkeley, blessed place, an incarnation at every street corner." It's the beginning of the New Age movement, it's so much. So incarnations are not that cheap. Now, your specific question was, suppose I believe in somebody who is not an incarnation, but I believe that he is an incarnation, he or she is an incarnation. Is that wrong? It's quite wrong if that person encourages it. I know quite clearly that I'm not an incarnation. Now, if I encourage people to believe that I am an incarnation, or lead them on, or at least not deny it outright, then that would be wrong. However, faith by itself is not wrong. I remember, this is not about incarnation, it's about something much lower, a guru. So I was in the Himalayas, and there was this one Baba who was quite famous, and there were some charges against him, so some kind of stories going around about him. And I met this monk who was a disciple of that teacher. And that monk used to stay in a cottage near ours. And I really liked this monk. He was an elderly man. He was a householder from Rajasthan, a simple man. He had completed his household duties. His children had grown up. He had given his business, his work, property to children. And he had left home and become a monk in old age. But a very simple, straightforward man. And he had this wholehearted faith in that Baba. Now, that same question which you have, I had the same question. I asked a senior monk, what will happen? Because suppose that teacher is not really a good, advanced spiritual person, and this person has this undiluted faith in his master. The monk laughed and said, the disciple will go to heaven, the teacher will go to hell. Yeah. So, faith is a great power. But it's a great responsibility on the teacher, let alone incarnation. It's a very big thing to claim. But even the others, not to claim more than what they truly are. People really want to believe, and they will immediately believe it. This leads to exploitation, and so too many incarnations is a big question mark. It's unlikely that there will be a bunch of incarnations all the time. I often think that the injunction against no other prophets after Prophet Muhammad in Islam, you have to look at the context in which it was made. Immediately after the Prophet Muhammad, immediately there were pretenders who also claimed that we are also prophets and we are getting messages from Allah and you do this or you do that. And so this injunction was put in place. That's to stop this kind of thing from happening. But it has got its own problems. It can lead to narrowness and fanaticism in time, and a denial of any possibility of any kind of incarnation ever coming again. So that's the answer. My instinct is to go straight back to Advaita Vedanta and say, all that's very good, but it ultimately, what you are, that's the important thing. And that doesn't depend on incarnation or no incarnation. It's the truth about one's own reality. Yes, this gentleman here.
So, hi, my name is Mihir. I have a question about the ritual of animal sacrifice. Does that implicitly imply that man can, Sri Ramakrishna is saying man can access God above other organisms on earth even? So over trees, flowers, etc. If everything is Brahman, then why would something like a sacrifice be okay?
Yeah. One is whether only the human being can attain God realization, and that was the general understanding in all Indian systems, that the human birth is very privileged and very special, and so this birth is meant for spiritual realization. This is where the door to enlightenment is open. Second, the origin of these sacrifices. I think it was sacrifices, you give up something that is valuable to you. And remember, animals were wealth in ancient times. So you are actually giving up something that's really close and valuable to you. And remember, religions have evolved over time. Vivekananda himself, when we have a big puja of Durga Puja in the monastery, he said we should have a sacrifice, we should sacrifice a goat. Ma Sharda heard about it and said, absolutely not. There should be no animal sacrifice in the monastery. And somebody said, see how wise she was. That was the small and humble beginning in those days. Now it's an enormous event. One of the major puja events, the Durga Puja in Belur Math. And if he had started that at that time, today there would be a river of blood running down to the Ganga. So she put a complete stop to it. So does that mean it was wrong thousands of years ago? No. Sri Ramakrishna is very careful. As a part of a special ritual, you sacrifice a particular animal, it was accepted. You shouldn't condemn that. But then there are extremes. And it had gone to extremes. One of the major reasons why the Buddha revolted against this kind of ritualistic religion was the animal sacrifice. He absolutely wanted that to stop. So religions have evolved. Now you see it's almost entirely gone. Even in traditions which had animal sacrifice at one time. Yeah. Let me read a little bit and then we'll take one or two more questions. Yes. So Sri Ramakrishna's birthday. Many of his disciples and devotees wanted to celebrate the happy occasion at Dakshineshwar temple garden. From early morning, the devotees streamed in, alone or in parties. After the morning worship in the temples, sweet music was played in the Nahabat. It was springtime. The trees, creepers and plants were covered with new leaves and blossoms. The very air seemed laden with joy, and the hearts of the devotees were glad on this auspicious day. M arrived early in the morning and found the master talking smilingly to Bhavanath, Rakhal and Kali Krishna. M prostrated himself before him. Master, to M, I am glad you have come. To the devotees, one cannot be spiritual as long as one has shame, hatred or fear. Great will be the joy today, but those fools who will not sing or dance mad with God's name will never attain God. How can one feel any shame or fear when the names of God are sung? Now sing, all of you. It's a little bit of a hint to M. M, remember, he was a school teacher, and these were all young boys. So he was very formal and sort of stiff, and he wasn't quite comfortable singing and dancing. He could sit and watch, or sing along, but not stand up and dance in front of others. So this is something that Sri Ramakrishna is pointing out. See, shame, hatred or fear. Where should one have shame, hatred or fear, and where one should not have? So one has no shame in doing lots of worldly stuff, and one has shame. One feels a little shy when it comes to singing the name of God. Somebody asked me, how can you go around in the United States dressed like this, dressed so funny? I said, look, I know what this stands for, and I'm proud of it. I am comfortable in it. It really does. I know some people might find it funny, some people might, comment on it. That's all right. It's understandable. If somebody said, you're walking around dressed in an orange bed sheet. Some people say, oh, I like the color. Many people nowadays recognize it, that it's some kind of monastic dress. Many people think I'm a Hare Krishna, so they say Hare Krishna to me. And today I was walking, somebody said, Jai Swami Narayan. So I don't correct them, it's all right. It's as long as they recognize it's some kind of monastic dress. Yes, so one should not have shame when it comes to spirituality, to God realization. It's not something that I should keep hidden away. Don't go to the other extreme also. The other extreme is imposing it on everyone, left, right and center. Whether they want to be interested, they want to listen to you, they don't want to listen to you. You want to bring everybody to that path. They make a pest of yourself. Don't do that. Then hatred or fear. These are strong emotions which will keep you away from God realization. If it is true, it is the same Brahman everywhere. What can you really hate? Whom can you really hate? If it is true, it's the same Brahman everywhere. You are Brahman, the immortal in infinite existence, consciousness, bliss. What will you be afraid of? One sign of enlightenment is that you go beyond fear. But not the beyond fear of the person who is, a burglar or a crook or something, fearlessly stealing. No, not that kind. So where one has to apply shame, hatred or fear, and where one should be free of it. Great will be the joy today. And so there are songs which are being sung. Bhavanath and his friend Kali Krishna sang Thrice blessed is this day of joy. May all of us unite, O Lord, to preach thy true religion here in India's holy land, and so on. 187, next page. As Sri Ramakrishna listened to the song with folded hands, his mind soared to a far-off realm. He remained absorbed in meditation a long time. After a while, Kali Krishna whispered something to Bhavanath. Then he bowed down before the master and rose. Sri Ramakrishna was surprised. In Bengali it is Bishmoy. Bishmoy means in utter wonderment, not just surprise, just utter wonderment. He asked, "Where are you going?" Bhavanath, "He is going away on a little business." Master, "What is it about?" Bhavanath, "He is going to the Baranagar Working Men's Institute." Master, "It's his bad luck." And the person left. So it's his bad luck. A stream of bliss will flow here today. He could have enjoyed it, but how unlucky. So this is a hint to us. Spiritual life, spiritual aspiration, spiritual practice, spiritual gatherings, talks and classes like this are very precious. As we go through life, we will find that this is what we cherish ultimately. More and more as we mature and we go towards the end of this life, we will cherish this. And these opportunities come rarely. You want it, and it is available, and it's right in front of you. Now imagine, Sri Ramakrishna is there, and devotees, and Sri Ramakrishna is in ecstasy, bhajans are being sung, the whole day will pass in spiritual talk, in meditation, in singing, in the presence of someone like Sri Ramakrishna. And he has to go on business, he just bows down at next thing, a to-do list, ticked off. Sri Ramakrishna's birthday, I said happy birthday, now off to the next, the Working Men's Institute. This was an educational institute, good work. But no, nothing compared to this. You must stop all that and participate in this. There was this great Pandit who came to Swami Brahmananda in Bhuvaneshwar long after Sri Ramakrishna had passed. And that Pandit said, "I want to tell you something, share a pain which has been there in my heart." Many, many years ago, when Sri Ramakrishna was alive in this human body, in this mortal body, and in Dakshineshwar, I had heard about Sri Ramakrishna and I set out to meet him, to see him. And on the way, I suddenly thought, but he knows in the hearts of all people. He will surely see into my heart and see, what kind of person I am or what my thoughts are. And a fear seized me. Suppose he would expose me before everybody. Suppose he shows everybody what kind of person I am. In public, I am shamed. Of course, Sri Ramakrishna would never do that. But anyway, that fear came upon me. And halfway, he didn't go any further. He went back home. And he never ever saw Sri Ramakrishna. And he says, that has haunted me all my life. And he started weeping bitterly. I never saw him. And then Swami, of course, the story is very wonderful. Swami Brahmananda said, "But I have seen him." "No, I never saw him." "You have seen him. One who has seen the son has seen the father too." Swami Brahmananda is to be considered the spiritual son of Sri Ramakrishna. Then this Pandit, he was weeping. He bowed down before Swami Brahmananda, and when he looked up, he saw Sri Ramakrishna sitting there. Just for a moment, he saw that. Anyway, it is his bad luck. Don't go away. I remember as a young monk once, in the main monastery, I was not yet a sannyasi, I was a brahmachari novice. I used to go to the library and sit and read, and then I would go back to that place where I was posted for whatever work. So it was time for arati, evening arati, and the library closed. Monks were going to the main temple of Sri Ramakrishna. And I thought, I'll just go back to my room. I finished reading, I'll go on reading in my room. I was walking away. An old monk, he was walking towards the temple. He saw me from a distance. "Where are you off to?" I said, "Well, I'm going back to my room." And he said, "You won't go to the arati?" I didn't say anything. I said, "Well, I thought I was going to go back to my room." And then the monk, I still remember, with so much love and affection, he grabbed my hand. He said, "Come on, come with me, come to the arati." And he took me to the arati. So it was a great lesson. All right, so somebody else had a question. We'll end with that. Yeah, the gentleman at the back. Yes.
Pranam Swamiji. I listened to Eli Wiesel, the novelist who was as a little boy in the concentration camps. And one of the things he said is that he felt...
You actually met him?
No, listen.
Listen to him.
Yeah. I met his son. I worked with his son. So he was saying that he felt that God abandoned his people. It's like he could not understand why that would happen. And I was trying to connect your thoughts of being in God's hospital with this disease, trying to connect with where does gratuitous suffering end and getting out of God's hospital start? What is the connection between those two concepts, and how do we connect them in our heads?
So first of all, what you said is true. This is a huge point of inflection in Jewish theology. That how could the Holocaust happen? That 6 million people, innocent people, just snatched away from their lives, put into so much suffering, and then murdered in mass concentration camps. And then not just 6 million people, 6 million Jews, but many others who survived the camps also. They went through so much suffering that they were scarred for the rest of their lives, And then the question is that how can God allow this kind of suffering? But notice, this is an example of enormous proportions, of great suffering, of enormous proportions. But suffering is there all throughout. It's not that this is the only example of suffering and others are not suffering. There is suffering, there are cataclysms. Millions of people die. There are wars. There is disease. We just came out of a pandemic. And there is suffering at the individual level, in every family, in every person's life. So I'm reading this wonderful book, The Emperor of All Maladies. It's on cancer. Siddharth Mukherjee, he wrote this book. So there he starts with, it's a wonderful book really, if you have read it, or if you haven't read it, even as literature, it's really wonderful literature. It's very gripping. He lives here in New York, I heard. New York, right? You've met him? No. In Columbia? He works in Columbia. So he starts with a quote from Susan Sontag. So Susan Sontag says, all of us have dual citizenship. We have two passports. One in the country of the well, another the country of the ill, of the sick. And no matter how healthy we are, no matter how much we want to visit the country with the good passport, all of us are obliged to, even if for a short time, visit that other country. He says, the dwellers in the night, he says, that is the country of the sick, country of the ill. So suffering is there in everybody's life. And terrible, huge suffering also. This question was raised to me more than once by Bill, who's Jewish, Bill Conrad. He fought in the Second World War. And he asked this question, how could God permit a Holocaust? And the conclusion drawn seems to be, if this happens, such a thing has happened, then God doesn't exist. See, a compassionate God cannot permit such enormous suffering. I often think, yes, compassionate God cannot permit such enormous suffering. But why would a compassionate, all-powerful God even permit a little bit of suffering? The suffering of a little animal, for example. Notice the way the world is designed, suffering is inevitable. And Sri Ramakrishna talks about the woman suffering at childbirth. Look at the cycle of nature. Predators eat their prey. Doesn't the mouse suffer when the cat catches it? Doesn't the insect suffer when the lizard catches it? So suffering is built into the structure of nature. So why? And is this an argument for the non-existence of God? This is a big theological question. It's called the problem of evil. The problem of evil, problem of suffering. But there's natural evil which would happen because of nature. But there is also man-made evil on purpose, like the Holocaust. of causing enormous suffering to others. So my answer to him was, so the argument is, if such horrible things happen, then actually God can't exist. God would not permit such a thing. I said to him, 2 cases I'm presenting to you. Tell me which is worse. One is, see, all those Jewish people who died in the Holocaust, most of them at least, they believed in God in some way or the other. They had faith. Most of them. They were religious people. They had some faith. Now, it could be true that they were right, or it could be true that they were wrong. Right means God actually exists. There is life after death. That could be true. Or maybe they are wrong. There is no God. There is no life after death. Everything is there. So, in the second case, if there is no God, no life after death, which their religion told them that there is God, there is life after death, suppose it was not true, then everything ended in the gas chambers of Auschwitz and Treblinka and other places. You were most unjustly taken away from your family, from your life, and imprisoned and tortured and killed. And nothing more. That's it. It's finished. That's the second case. The other case is, you were taken away unjustly, tortured and killed, but that's not the end of your story. That's not the end of your story. You still exist. And you will go on in your spiritual path. You develop, and in your spiritual journey it will continue. This was one story, one chapter in a much larger story of your spiritual evolution. Which one is a better option? The first one is a better option. Especially if you ask that person in the concentration camp who is going to die, of these 2 options, which one would you prefer to be true? They would say the first one. If I'm going to die anyway, if this all hope is lost, I would still have that much hope that God exists, afterlife exists, and this is part of a longer story, not the only story that I have. To me, it does not show that God doesn't exist. To me, it makes it all the more urgent that God does exist. Why would God permit such a thing? There are many answers to that. I have a book which gives you 24 answers. None of them very satisfying. But anyway, this is a fact. What does Vedanta say about it? Vedanta says you have to get out of this as soon as possible. Buddhism also says that. This is not an answer that you can, even if you get an answer, all those 24 answers if you get, you still will not be satisfied. What will satisfy you? Ending the suffering. Ending the suffering. And you can become enlightened and free of the suffering, and so can everybody, and that's the whole goal of it, to transcend this limited state and go beyond suffering. Yes. The gentleman here? Yes. We actually run. Yeah, go ahead.
This reminds me of a story that my friend Scott told me a couple of years ago about the mustard seed and the woman whose baby died.
Yeah.
And she was terribly, terribly hurt, crying and yelling, and she brought the baby to the Buddha.
Yeah.
And the Buddha says, "What can I do for you?" He says, "Bring my baby to life." And he says, "Well, I don't know whether I can do that for you. But I tell you what, why don't you take my bowl and go to all the houses in the village and ask them for mustard seed from the person who died in your family, did not die." So she went from house to house, and no one could give her a mustard seed. So she went back to the Buddha, and she says, "I have no mustard seeds." And he says, "Well, everybody suffers. Everybody must die. This is what life is about.
Yes.
Living and dying. Not just living, but dying." So, and she became a nun.
A nun in the order, yes.
And
She calmed down. I noticed that these three answers to the same question, the suffering of death. One from the Buddha, the earliest one, the next from Jesus, and the last one from the Holy Mother. The 3 stories. The Buddha story you just heard, that Kisa Gautami, she came to the understanding that death is inevitable. There was no household in the whole city where death had not touched, had not visited. Death is inevitable, and therefore it should not be sorrowed after. Of course, grief is natural, but you should get over it, and spiritual quest is the important thing. She became a spiritual seeker, a nun, in fact. So that's one. An understanding through knowledge to transcend sorrow right now. Second, Jesus. Lazarus come forth when his very beloved disciples, their brother, I think Mary and Martha, their brother died, and so they were inconsolable, and they said, Jesus, you have the power to raise them from the dead, raise him from the dead. And again, an impossible demand. And Jesus said that, Lazarus come forth, and he actually came out of the grave and he lived, at least for a while. What does that show? That spirituality, see, it's not that when Lazarus came back to life and then what else? But everybody, he died inevitably, and everybody died, including Jesus also. But what it means is that death is not the end. There is eternal life. The life beyond death is there. Death is not the end. And spirituality will lead you to that eternal life. That's the second message. Third message is this woman who was a widow and she had a young son who also died, and she has left with absolutely nothing and inconsolable. She came to the Holy Mother and wept bitterly. And people in the household there, they were surprised to see the Holy Mother herself, Sharada Devi, wailing bitterly like her own son has died. And after some time, she consoled that lady, the poor lady, and God gave her oil for her hair and told her to take a bath and come, and fed her and sent her away with gifts and told her to keep coming, and whenever she needed anything to talk to him, to talk to her. What did she do? By understanding your suffering. We know often that this suffering is unavoidable, but what we want is sympathy, another heart to cry with us. And that's what the Holy Mother did. It was complete, someone who's entirely on your side and understands you deeply and feels as you do, and then slowly takes you beyond it. So this is, there are three stories, but thank you very much for that. Let's have a peace chant. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.